I still remember the way my daughter, Emily, smiled when the doctor told us she could finally walk after the surgery. She was 8, tiny and fragile, with curls that always fell into her big brown eyes. Her legs had been weak since birth, and this surgery was her only chance to stand on her own. I worked 3 jobs for nearly 4 years, saving every cent. Every night, while Emily slept curled up against me, I whispered to myself, "Just a little longer. Just hold on, baby girl. Mommy's got you." I thought I had everything planned. I had $32,000 saved in a separate account, untouched. Every overtime shift, every skipped meal, every sleepless night, it was all for her. I never bought new clothes, never went out, never lived for myself, and for the first time in years, I felt hope. Until that morning. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I woke up to Emily humming softly to her dolls when my phone buzzed with an email from the hospital. "We regret to inform you that your surgery payment was declined." I froze. I stared at the screen, blinking as if I'd misread it. Then I opened my banking app. My hands shook so violently I could barely type my password, and then I saw it balance, $1.36. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. I thought it was a glitch, but deep down, I knew exactly where the money went. I drove straight to my parents' house, Emily still in her pajamas in the back seat. My sister, Madison, opened the door in a silk robe, her makeup flawless at 9 in the morning. Behind her, the living room was filled with boxes of luxury decorations, gold candles, imported roses, champagne towers. My mom was laughing with a wedding planner about the perfect centerpiece. "Where's my money?" My voice cracked. Dad turned slowly from the sofa, sipping coffee like he was on vacation. "Morning to you too," he said calmly. "Don't do this," I said, stepping forward. $32,000, it's gone. You know what that money was for." Mom rolled her eyes. "We borrowed it," she said, folding her arms. "For your sister's wedding. Don't be dramatic." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Borrowed? That was Emily's surgery fund. Without it, She'll live," Madison interrupted casually, inspecting her nails. "Or maybe she won't. Either way, at least she's not ugly in photos." I froze. My own sister. Dad leaned back, chuckling. "Listen, that wedding will make this family look respectable for once. Finally, we'll show people we're not trash." He waved a dismissive hand at Emily, who clutched her stuffed bunny tighter. "If she dies, at least her little body finally did something useful." I swear I couldn't breathe. My ears rang. My hands trembled, but I pulled Emily close before they could see me break. "You're monsters," I whispered. Mom smiled, almost proud. "Don't forget whose house you're standing in, Piglet. You owe us for raising you." Emily tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, can we go home?" Her voice was so soft it shattered me. That night, I sat by Emily's bed, stroking her curls as she slept. My chest ached with rage and guilt. I stared at the hospital's number on my phone screen, knowing I couldn't afford the surgery anymore. And in that moment, something inside me changed. I thought about every shift I'd worked, every humiliation I'd endured, every second I let them make me feel small. I thought about how they stole Emily's chance to walk and laughed about it. And right then, I promised myself something. They were going to regret every single thing they'd ever done. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg, and I wasn't going to fight them on their terms. I was going to destroy everything they cared about. Slowly, quietly, perfectly. I kissed Emily's forehead and whispered, "Sleep, baby. Mommy's got you. It's my turn now." And for the first time in my life, I smiled. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, Emily's soft breathing drifting from the bedroom, while the hum of the fridge filled the silence. My eyes burned from hours of staring at the hospital's bill on my phone. Every number on the screen screamed at me, $32,000 gone, gone, because my parents thought Madison's wedding was more important than Emily's ability to walk. I replayed every word they'd said. If she dies, at least she's useful. My blood turned cold each time I heard it in my head. At first, my rage was loud. I wanted to storm into that overpriced wedding, rip the roses off the tables, smash the champagne glasses, scream until my throat tore apart. But then I remembered Madison's smug smirk and Mom's perfect little laugh. They fed off my anger. No, I wouldn't give them that. If they wanted quiet, I'd give them silence so loud it would shatter their world. I started small. 2 days later, I drove to the bridal boutique where Madison had ordered her imported Italian gown, the one she bragged about at every family dinner. I walked in, acting casual, and asked the clerk about an alteration appointment. While she checked the system, I overheard a conversation at the counter. Madison's gown was still being held because the remaining balance hadn't been cleared. My lips curved. I called the boutique later, pretending to be Madison. I used her full name, her fake breathy voice, even her wedding date. "Hi, I'd like to cancel my dress order and request a refund. My fiancé called it off," I said, forcing a tremble into my tone. "Oh, and please sell it immediately." The panic on the other end was almost sweet. "Of course, Miss Crawford. We'll process it today." 2 days later, Madison called me, shrieking into the phone. "Where is my dress?" I hung up before she could finish screaming. But that was only the beginning. While Madison spiraled over her missing gown, I visited the venue they'd booked for the wedding, a sprawling glass-walled estate on the hills, the kind they posted about online just to make people jealous. I walked in with a clipboard, wearing a simple black dress and a fake badge I'd printed the night before. "Hi," I said confidently. "I'm here to confirm the catering changes for Crawford Kensington October 12th. The receptionist, harried and frazzled, nodded without question. "We've been waiting for someone to finalize it." I smiled faintly. Perfect. They've decided to cancel the lobster towers, switch the wines to house reds, and cut the champagne entirely. Oh, and they won't be covering valet anymore. "Are you sure?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice as though sharing a secret. "Trust me, they can't afford it." By the time Madison found out, invitations had already gone out with the premium menu. Hundreds of high society guests would now be served the cheapest drinks and bargain bin catering at her luxury wedding. Madison threw a tantrum so bad she had to be escorted out of the florist's office. But the real knife came from the one thing my parents cared about most, their reputation. For years, Dad boasted about his perfect family, painting himself as a noble provider. He loved the way people admired him at country clubs and church luncheons, so I started pulling at the threads he'd stitched so neatly. I gathered everything I had on them. The unpaid property taxes they'd hidden, the bounced checks they'd silenced, the shady loans they'd taken in Madison's name. I didn't need to expose them publicly, not yet. I just needed to make the right people nervous. Anonymously, I sent polite little packages to Dad's business partners, each with copies of documents hinting at financial irregularities. Nothing illegal enough to land them in jail, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Within a week, 2 contracts Dad had bragged about for months were mysteriously put on hold. At dinner one night, Mom slammed her wine glass down and hissed, "Why aren't they calling back, Frank?" Dad rubbed his temples. "I don't know. Something's wrong. Everyone's pulling back." I tucked Emily in tighter that night, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "This is for you, baby." The cracks widened faster than I expected. Madison's fiancé, Liam, called off the wedding after one of his groomsmen showed him an anonymous email filled with proof that the Crawfords were drowning in debt. He wasn't about to marry into a sinking ship. Madison showed up at my apartment 2 days later, mascara streaking her face, screaming like a banshee, "You ruined my life!" I stood in the doorway, Emily holding my hand. "No," I said softly. "You ruined mine when you stole her future." She lunged at me, but I shut the door in her face before she could reach us. Behind the wood, her screams turned into sobs. I didn't feel sorry, not even a little. By the end of the month, Mom and Dad's perfect family was in ruins. The wedding was canceled, their social circle evaporated, and Dad's business teetered on collapse. But I wasn't done yet. I had one final move, something they'd never recover from. And when I pulled it, they'd finally understand what it felt like to be helpless. I woke up before sunrise the next day, the city still silent, the streets outside wet from last night's rain. Emily was still asleep, her tiny hand curled against her cheek, breathing softly. I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at her little brace lying against the wall, that stiff, ugly reminder of everything they'd stolen from her. Every time I saw it, my fury deepened. My parents thought they'd taken everything from me. They thought their laughter over my daughter's pain would echo forever. But they had no idea the silence I was about to unleash. The first step wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, delicate, like pulling one thread from a sweater and watching the whole thing fall apart. I spent nights researching property laws, inheritance loopholes, and hidden debts buried in public archives. I pieced together a map of their empire, the vacation home they flaunted, the rentals they gifted Madison, the trust fund they never told anyone about. Everything they'd hoarded over the years. Everything they believed untouchable. I didn't plan to expose them. Not yet. That would have been too merciful. Instead, I bought their debts. It took months, sleepless nights, side jobs, selling every scrap of jewelry I owned. But one by one, I tracked down every private lender, every half-buried loan they'd taken out over the years, and I made quiet offers they couldn't refuse. By the time spring came, I owned the very chains around their necks. The day I walked into their home uninvited was the first time they'd seen me in months. Mom sat on the white couch, sipping her overpriced imported coffee like a queen on a throne. Madison perched beside her, scrolling through her phone, still wearing the cheap rehearsal dinner gown she'd downgraded to after losing the Italian dress. Dad leaned against the fireplace, shoulders tight. When I stepped inside, holding a folder in my hand, Mom's lips curled. "Oh, look who decided to crawl back," she purred. "Did your crippled little burden finally die, or are you here to beg for scraps?" I smiled faintly. "Neither. I came to collect." Dad's brows furrowed. "Collect what?" I placed the folder on the marble coffee table and opened it slowly, savoring the sound of the paper. Inside were copies of the debt agreements, every loan, every missed payment, every lien. "Yours," I said calmly. "All of it." Madison scoffed, flipping her hair. "Cute. You really think a broke single mom bought this?" I didn't say a word. I just slid the final page across the table, the one with the signed confirmation of transfer. Dad's face turned pale as he read. Mom's smirk faltered. "I own your house," I whispered. "I own your vacation cabin. I own the rental Madison's little fiancé ran from. Every late payment, every lien, it's mine now. You stole my daughter's future, so I bought yours." For the first time in my life, my father, the man who once smashed plates against the wall when I defied him, looked small. But I wasn't here for property. I was here for poetry. "You have 60 days, I said softly. 60 days to move out, settle whatever scraps you can keep, and crawl somewhere else. After that, I let the silence hang. The locks change. Mom stood trembling with rage. "You wouldn't dare! We are your parents!" I looked her in the eye. "Parents don't gamble their granddaughter's legs for an open bar." Madison spat at my feet. "You're pathetic. You'll always be the broken one. No man, no money, just a useless little—" I cut her off with a smile. "Funny thing about being broken, Madison. Sometimes you learn to use the cracks to cut others." The following weeks were glorious. I didn't humiliate them publicly. I didn't scream. I didn't need to. I simply turned the screws, one quiet motion at a time. The utilities shut off first. Then the friends they bragged to stopped returning calls after whispers of financial ruin spread whispers I planted carefully in the ears of the right people. By the time moving day came, they were ghosts of themselves. Dad loaded boxes into a dented pickup truck. Mom's designer heels clicked unevenly on the cracked driveway. Madison refused to look at me, muttering curses under her breath as she shoved her ruined gown into a bag. Emily watched from the porch beside me, holding my hand. Her brace gleamed in the morning light, but she stood taller somehow, like even she could feel the shift in the air. Mom stopped halfway down the steps, spun toward me, and screamed, "You'll pay for this!" I tilted my head. I already have. And then I closed the door in their faces. I didn't sell the house. I didn't rent it. I left it empty. Every time they drove past, they'd see the life they thought they owned sitting just out of reach, cold and silent. That was my revenge, not destroying them, but leaving them alive inside the ruins they built themselves. And at night, when Emily laughed as I read her bedtime stories, I finally understood. I hadn't just taken revenge. I'd taken back everything. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.